Hey folks, welcome to Defining Talent, the podcast where we get really curious about the intangibles or the soft skill side of hiring and team building. So today we are all in for a treat. I'm joined here by Ashley, who's the founder and CEO of Prowess Project, and she has been thinking about compatibility matching and soft skills for a very long time, especially looking at team building in the startup space, and has great successful stats behind it to prove it. So I'm super excited to be joined today by Ashley and excited for what we're going to learn together. Hey Ashley, welcome to the show.
Oh, Nikki, I have been so pumped for this. Excited to be here.
Yeah, same here. Awesome. Well, let's kick off with when did you start thinking about talent and team building as part of your career? I love hearing answers to this question as we go about it.
Short answer is I didn't. I wasn't thinking about it at all. I was in tech marketing and fell into it after the collapse of my second business. And I realized I 100% needed an ops-minded number two. And that's when I was like, oh dear, I need to find one who works well and works well with me.
Yep, that's important. At the end of the day, if we work with people, we're working with talent, and that's an important part of what we're doing. I love that. So tell me a little bit about Prowess Project. When did you start it? Why did you start it? What's that story?
Yes. So as I said, I was in tech marketing for 15 years, looked up at all the leadership, and no surprise, they were all men. And if there was one woman, she didn't have children and chose not to, I would then go talk to a couple of them and just asked. And they said, hey, look, I had to decide between a career and having children. And I decided a career. I was like, awesome. Love that. I want both. How am I going to make that happen? So I went on to Google, found the horrific Harvard Business Review statistic that if a woman is out of the workforce raising children for just 3 years, she loses 37% of her total compensation power forever. This happens to 43% of women in the US who are educated and have professional experience.
Wow.
And the kicker, 97% of them would return to the workforce if they had access to flexible jobs.
Aha.
Underscore, underscore, underscore. And so that's when I was like, wow, this is a massive issue. Went out and talked to about 1,000 of those women who wanted to return and couldn't, and heard a lot of the same thing of, Ashley, I can only get unpaid internships. I have lost my confidence. I have more of what I would refer to as a patchwork quilt-like background, meaning I have some sales, some tech, some ops, some marketing, but it's not this linear career movement. And I took a step out to raise children, so people don't know where to put me. And that's where I had this aha moment of, these women are absolutely perfect to be what Prowess Project calls online business managers. So essentially CEOs, founders, number two, who are always thinking about operations, about automation, about scaling, etc. And then building out a platform that matches them with these visionary CEO founders based on compatibility in work style, soft skills, in addition to skills needed. And that is Prowess Project.
That's amazing. Well, you mentioned that it was important for you to find someone who worked well with you.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that? What were you thinking in terms of qualities? What were you trying to interview for when you said, would this person work well with me?
Well, I made a lot of mistakes before I just really figured out how to interview for that. I think a lot of times when we are interviewing people, we are drawn to people who are like us. That's just who match our energy or have the same interest or like doing the same things or have the same passions or whatever that looks like. When in actuality, when you're building a business, when you're building a team, you need someone who is compatible, not the same, meaning I am a typical visionary. I like big ideas. I like relationships. I like speaking. I like sharing my passion. In order to turn my dreams into reality, I need someone who is ops minded, who is task oriented, detail oriented, loves to, quite frankly, get shit done. And that's who I need to be paired with, not another me.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like that's something that you've kind of built into the core of Prowess as well.
Bingo. Because I think a lot of people were over and over again chasing their tails, hiring the same versions of themselves over and over again, and not looking at the people they really could use the most, which are these ops minded type of people. And especially I'm talking about the CEOs, the founders, the visionary types of folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you also mentioned flexibility being a key part of this. That's something that we found in our journey is recognizing, I had the same experience, I think later than you. I waited until I was a mom and then realized, oh, my needs and wants are different in the marketplace than they were before. I still want to do big work, but I also want to come in on my terms, which are 9:30. Didn't feel like a big deal to me, but it was still a deal breaker, right? And it was amazing how the conversations would shift and the tone would shift because it would feel like I was interested in things that weren't as important in business. And it felt like there was this huge missing talent pool of parents, of folks who kind of wanted more of that balance, that, where I'll say it's hard to hire, and then we're like excluding this larger section. Can you talk a little bit about flexibility? How have you found that we can like tap into that talent of folks or that pool of folks?
Absolutely. So that was not only a key thing that the data said at the beginning of our conversation, that Harvard Business Review statistic that 97% of these women would return, but also what I kept hearing over and over and over again from all of these women who wanted to return in these, again, what we call online business manager, but this integrator, ops minded people, is I need flexibility because I want to have both, and flexibility can mean many different things, which also has a lot to do with the way that we built out our matching. Flexibility could mean flexibility in number of hours that online business manager can give that week. Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20. Or it could mean I have untraditional work hours. I can't do 9 to 5 butts and seats. I can do 7 to 9. I can then do, 10 to 2. And then I can do 7 to 12 midnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is also flexibility. Flexibility could be remote. All of those things are so, so important for hiring managers and founders to think about in order to get the very, very best talent, not just out there, but very, very best talent for them.
Mm. Yeah, and that's so critical, I find, because especially in that startup innovative space, like we're building something that hasn't existed before. Not everyone is going to be compatible within all the different pieces of that. Yeah, that's so insightful.
And also, if I may, on the compatibility standpoint, I think one thing that was really, really obvious to me about all of these women who were either pivoting in their career so they could have flexibility or returning to their career so they could have flexibility, they are driven by passion. And so that also is another huge part of the compatibility. As founders, as hiring managers, we need to find people who share the same passion for the business that we do. And these women are like, look, if I'm not spending time with my kids or my parents or whomever I'm caregiving, I want to be doing something that I deeply, deeply care about. And so that's really critical too, especially for founders.
And how are you making that alignment with folks as part of, the Prowess platform?
It's all a part of the inputs that we look at both sides of the marketplace. So again, when a job seeker or career returner enters, we ask them questions about that. We're gathering data as they go through our training and vetting. And then same on the hiring manager, CEO, founder side. We're asking them about their passions, what their do's and don'ts are, the way that they communicate, the way that they work, what they do, what they don't like, so that we can really make that compatibility like 10 out of 10.
And how has that been? I'm curious, it's so easy to undersell and undercount soft skills, but you've really gone really hard towards it. Like, what does that look like numerically in terms of like these matches and how successful they've been?
I love this question. We have had about a 80% success rate on this. And
hiring, that's incredible.
You're right. But again, I think because we're looking at data. Like, yes, it is quote unquote soft skills, but there's been a ton of behavior science done out there. Like, we are putting some numbers to this. And yes, there's some art. Of course there is. But I think that any data is better than no data. And the way that I look at this is, if eHarmony and Match.com have been matching on soft skills on dating for decades now, like, why aren't we looking at this for jobs?
Yeah, I love that perspective. That's so great. Oh my goodness, great way to look at it. I'm curious, like, what are some things you hadn't expected, or maybe you didn't nail, or took a while? You mentioned you like went through a little trial and error here in terms of like making that soft skill alignment.
I think one thing that I was quite frankly disappointed in, which can be a huge tool and success factor for founders out there, is really truly doubling down on the soft skills, especially with your underrepresented populations of talent. You need to be hiring for, are you coachable? You need to be hiring for, can you learn how to do this? You need to be hiring for, are you going to drive me crazy by all the different questions you're asking me, or are you asking it in a great way? Because almost anyone can learn things. And if they get to a certain point where you care about the same things and they believe in your mission, they are going to be internally motivated to learn those things. That's what you should be hiring for.
I love that. And we keep using the term soft skills. I really also think that undersells the term. Any other things that you've used that kind of internally you've kicked around?
Yes, interpersonal is a lot of times what we use. Interpersonal, and I think also taking that a step further, talking about work style gives it a little bit more gravitas than, unfortunately, interpersonal skills, even though I would argue that's the perfect word for it, and it should be even more important. When you say work style, it fits a little bit more, sit up in your seat, back straight type feeling.
Yeah, we're kind of shifting around with terminology. Like, language does matter. I love that. I'm always curious to think I'm always like, the intangibles, we all know what we mean, but like, I want to get deeper. I'm saying, like, I want us to define what are these words, and it's great if we can have a definition for the thing we're looking to define.
Well, and also what I have found that really helps too is ask the CEOs in advance, what are some examples of people you loved working with? How did they act? How did they make you feel? What are some of the ways they communicated with you? And again, that helps them zero in their mind what that success factor was, and then helps them then tell you so you can ensure that you are delivering on that as close as possible.
I love that. And especially when you're looking at historically excluded candidate groups, I can see that like really reduces bias because you have a shared language, a thing to talk about now. They didn't communicate with me in this way, as opposed to, I just don't like them.
Oh, gosh.
Bias in that piece of it.
Oh, Nikki, that is so good. I may be borrowing that. That is
it's pretty. You're doing the work, right? This is why we do that work. Awesome. Well, you and I have had this conversation before, and I'm kind of curious to bring it on air today. But like, just because we work in hiring doesn't mean we're immune to the hiring challenges that founders face. I think you and I have had tried to apply these learnings that we have towards building our own teams. Love to hear some wins, low points, and learnings that you've had kind of on the front lines as a founder.
Do the work. And what I mean by that is we looked internally of all of the hires over the past 4 years that we have built Prowess Project, and the ones that have been wildly successful, we have taken them through our own process. Oftentimes we're in such a hurry, right? We just want to fill the gaps. We just want to make it happen. But when we ate our own ice cream, we don't say eat our own dog food. We ate our own ice cream. Yes, when we ate our own ice cream, we really saw like, wow, we found compatible people, not people who shared our same vocabulary, energy, interests, etc. So that was really, really huge. Slow down to speed up, ladies and gentlemen. Slow down to speed up.
Yeah, so important. And then what do you look for in hiring, kind of out of these learnings? Like, what are some of those pieces when you're doing your work? Like, what are some of those qualities that make someone a really great fit at Prowess Project?
It first, I looked at what do I not like doing? Like,
Mm.
what is just not my zone of genius where your passion meets your innate talent. What is not that for me? And then my business partner, Leah Steinkirk, our amazing COO and truly a career returner and inspiration for the entire business. We look at her. What does she not like doing? What does she love doing? And then we look at all of that and figure out where the gaps are and really focus in on that first. Where are those gaps? What do we need to get done? What's going to get us closest to revenue? Because that's very important to where we are in our business stage right now. So that was very, very important. As we hired for that, to fill those gaps, to fill those work style traits, work style strengths, that's when we looked and said, okay, how do we take this person that has just knocked it out of the park? We absolutely love working with her. And how does her passion, her career goals fit within our umbrella, and constantly be talking about that with her so she sees how her path is a part of our big path for Prowess Project moving forward. And it's just been a dream team ever since.
Yeah, I love that you're thinking about this not just as hiring. This is a
Right.
continued vision that continues along. Hmm. And you're also like picking apart the hard skills too of like, what are those things that we really just don't want to do anymore that someone out there probably loves? Hmm. Ooh,
Yes.
ooh, I'm ready to make my list now. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't love doing.
Right. Oh, so good.
Well, so many gems here, Ashley. What other learnings do you have for us, if any, of just like in the hiring space of the last few years as you've kind of watched this conversation really evolve?
I know you said you'd edit this out. I'm thinking because I there's a lot of like just stuff that's coming to mind. And I want
Yeah,
to
yeah. Do what you
have
gotta
an
do.
articulate thought there. Um, One thing about hiring is you're always hiring. Always remember that. Always remember that people's compensation packages can look different, meaning they are motivated by different things. Ensure that you are not assuming what that could be, and truly asking and ensuring that it's right. Also, remembering, and Nikki, you and I know, like hiring is expensive, backfilling is expensive. So, really look at your people and invest in them, especially and make work for them. I think that's another huge part. Now, I don't want to say like break your business in order to keep someone, but really be thinking about, hey, just because I've done something this way for however many years, could it be done in a different way? Could we do asynchronous communication? Would it make more sense if we were using a tool for project management versus just Slack? Like, are happy hours at the end of the day the only way that we can all get together and have fun? Like, there's just so many different ways that you can be inclusive, um, and ensure that the people that you have stay with you, because remember, your workforce, your team is your best advertisement and best advertising channel, point blank.
Oh my gosh, such wisdom, Ashley. You just like rattled those off. Beautiful gems. Thank you for sharing those with us. I'd love to learn a little bit from you. And we are just talking about how, you know, each person that we hire is differently motivated, different, has different values. There's so much unique to that person. But I also know you've spoken now to thousands of people that are kind of gone through your methodology and of learning. What are some of the themes you see that especially these, you know, career returners and these women are bringing to the workforce? Like, what are they bringing to the table?
Well, first and foremost, they completely undervalue themselves. And so that is a huge thing that we are working on with them through our vetting and training process.
Mm.
I want to stop and reiterate one thing that is so important for both founders to hear or career returners or career pivoters. There is a treasure trove of value in people who have very varied backgrounds. When you are a founder, when you are starting something, when you have a problem, a challenge, and you want to bring diversity of thought, it is, like I said, gold when someone from a different industry who has worked in a different department, who has worked in a different region, comes in and says, hey, we use this in a completely different way at X, Y, and Z business, but it could be applicable. Oh, and guess what? Your competitors aren't doing that. I had one of my mentors say this, and I absolutely loved it. She said, when everyone else zigs, you zag. And in this market, and to break out from all the noise, it is so important that when everyone else zigs, you zag. And I think that patchwork quilt-like background of people should be valued by founders, by CEOs, by these visionaries, because it really brings so much to the table.
Yeah, we want that strategic generalist,
Oh,
right? That's such a good reframe to take something that so many see as a risk or a challenge, or they're not sure how to use it well. Instead, when you spend that time, it's actually like could be your biggest asset. Amazing.
Exactly. The way that we talk about it is like the OBM, like I said, it's a cross between, I don't know if I actually mentioned this. The OBM is the cross between the COO and the virtual assistant with a dash of digital marketing. But the way that we see it is it's your number two who is your utility player. So like, let's say you need to do some marketing. That person can get you good enough at marketing until you need to bring in an expert. Let's say you need some financial help. That person can get you good enough until you need to bring in an expert. So really be thinking about that Swiss Army knife person, that generalist, that utility player, because again, worth their weight in gold.
Especially right now in a really tight funding space, right? I'm noticing this year we felt a lot of folks hiring that COO, chief of staff role, because we realized we want not only the startup generalist, we want the generalist of the generalist, right? And it seems like, yeah. So I'd love to hear, like, how can we find out more about Prowess Project? How can we get these OBMs on our teams?
Oh, absolutely. Head over to prowessproject.com. We are at Prowess Project on all social channels. We have a free workshop that we host every other month that's all about finding your ultimate freedom with hiring your right-hand woman, your ops-minded number two. So absolutely come join us for that. You can be on the wait list if we don't have one up and running, but it really opens your eyes to, oh, wow, I can go on vacation and not check my email every 5 minutes.
So freeing. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you built this, not only for yourself, so you could have both, but also so other folks can have both, and then so that we as founders can have that partner in crime to do this work together. Well, my last question for you, Ashley, is what makes you a great teammate? I'm going to remind you that lots of folks undervalue themselves in the workspace, so just take that with this question.
Oh my gosh, Nikki, you're so good. I love how you just use my own words against me when I'm like,
the data tells me that people often undervalue their own skills.
What I think makes me a really good teammate or team member is I am always going to be your ultimate cheerleader. Like, I could not do anything without my team. I truly believe that everyone on the Prowess Project team is a heck of a lot smarter than I am, and I'm so incredibly grateful for all of them. So that would be a huge, huge thing. Also, someone said having a conversation with me was like a shot of espresso, and that was maybe the best compliment I have ever gotten. So
yeah, that's true. I'm more awake now than I was at the beginning of this session. That's for sure.
So good.
Well, amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining today and sharing all the learning that you've had kind of around like interpersonal skills, building out that online business manager, kind of like number two right-hand person to a founder to that early stage team to do big things. We talked a lot about how non-traditional patchwork style careers can be like the biggest hidden gem that we're looking for in that like super generalist. And then, yeah, I love that list of things that you mentioned. Like you're always hiring, really stuck with me that we're always talking about people and that the people on our team, we want to make sure that we're giving them the love, even if we're not opening new recs. So thanks so much for sharing all that, Ashley, and encourage everyone to get out and check out Prowess Project and keep following their journey. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It exceeded my expectations. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we'll have you back again.